All right, imagine this. You're a company, and you want to use some really advanced AI. You've got a couple of choices, but it's kind of like picking between, someone who's like a total expert, but they're going to charge you an arm and a leg, and then there's this new up-and-comer who's offering you a crazy good deal.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It's kind of like what a lot of businesses are facing right now, especially since this whole thing with DeepSeek R1.
DeepSeek R1. Okay, so fill us in.
Yeah.
What's the deal with DeepSeek R1?
Well, they've really kind of shaken things up, especially for companies like OpenAI, who have been like the big name in AI with their whole GPT series and all that.
Right, GPT-4, the latest and greatest, or at least that's what everyone's been saying.
Exactly. But DeepSeek, they've come in with this DSR1 model, and they're offering it at a price that's, well, it's pretty shocking, to be honest.
Shocking in a good way or a bad way? Like, is it too good to be true?
I guess that's what we're here to figure out, right?
Right.
But just to give you an idea, to process like 1,000,000 words with DeepSeek's model, it costs something like $2.19.
$2.19. That's like nothing.
Right. Now with OpenAI's GPT-4, that same 1,000,000 words would set you back about $60.
Wow. Okay, so that's like, what, almost 30 times more expensive? There's got to be a reason for that kind of difference.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are a lot of factors at play here.
Okay, so let's break it down. First of all, who are these companies? Give us the rundown on DeepSeek AI and OpenAI.
All right, so OpenAI, they're the big name, at least for now. They've been around for a while, and they've been really pushing the boundaries with their AI models, especially with their GPT series, which has been like the gold standard. And of course, they've got Microsoft backing them up, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, Microsoft's definitely not messing around in the AI world.
Nope. They're providing the whole cloud infrastructure for OpenAI's models, and that plays a big part in how they do things. Now, DeepSeek AI, they're kind of the new kid on the block. They're based mainly in China, and they've come out swinging with this DSR1 model.
Okay, so we've got an established player and a newcomer shaking things up. How do their approaches differ?
Well, one of the biggest differences is how they're structured. OpenAI, they operate within a closed system. So they control the whole process, the model, how you access it, the data it's trained on, everything. And it all happens within Microsoft's Azure cloud platform.
So they're keeping everything in-house under their control.
Pretty much. And that comes with costs, for development, maintenance, and of course, fees for using Azure.
Which makes sense. Microsoft wants their cut too. So DeepSeek must be doing things differently if they can offer such a low price.
They are. DeepSeek's gone with an open source model for DSR1, which means they've made the code publicly available.
Hold on, open source. Doesn't that mean anyone can just grab this AI and use it however they want? That sounds kind of chaotic.
It's not quite a free-for-all. There are still licenses and guidelines that govern the usage. But the core idea is transparency and accessibility.
Okay, so it's more about giving people the power to see how it works, to adapt it potentially.
Exactly. And that's a big deal for organizations that are kind of weary of relying on these big tech companies and their black box AI solutions, especially governments and companies that are concerned about data security.
Right, they want to know what's going on under the hood.
Yeah.
But wouldn't they need a ton of computing power to run these models themselves? That can't be cheap.
That's true. Running these large AI models does take a lot of computing power, but DeepSeek still offers cloud-based access to DSR1, just like OpenAI does with GPT-4. The open source aspect just gives people options.
I see, so they're not forcing anyone to go it alone. But I'm still curious, how are they able to offer it at such a drastically lower price? Is their model just, like, less powerful?
Well, that's where the why so cheap mystery comes in. There are a few key factors at play here, and the first one might just be efficiency. DeepSeek might simply be better at utilizing the hardware. It's kind of like, two companies can make the same product, but one might have a much more efficient way of manufacturing it so they can sell it for less.
So DeepSeek's model could be leaner, meaner, getting more bang for its buck, so to speak. What are the other factors?
Well, the second factor is, pricing strategy. DeepSeek could be deliberately undercutting the competition to grab some market share.
Yeah, the good old low price to get people in the door tactics. That's got to put some pressure on OpenAI. So what's the third factor?
All right, so this one gets into the whole business model. OpenAI, with their closed system and their reliance on Microsoft Azure and the whole API thing, that all adds to the costs.
Right. Lots of different moving parts there.
Yeah, and DeepSeek, by going open source and potentially avoiding some of those cloud fees, they can afford to offer a much lower price.
Okay, so it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how they're delivering it, how they're packaging it, all of that.
Absolutely.
So DeepSeek's making some strategic choices that allow them to be more cost effective. But are there any downsides to that? Are they sacrificing quality for a lower price?
That's the big question, right? Now, when it comes to, sheer performance, OpenAI's GPT-4 is still like the top dog, especially for those really complex tasks. It's got a great track record and people trust it to deliver.
But just because DeepSeek's cheaper doesn't mean it can't handle a lot of different tasks well.
You got it. It's all about finding the right tool for the job. GPT-4 might be amazing at writing, like a novel or something, but what if you just need to process tons of data, or you've got a simple task that needs to be done a million times? DeepSeek's affordability could be a real game changer there.
That makes sense. I guess it's a bit like choosing between, a fancy sports car and a really reliable work truck.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole price war so interesting. It's not just about having the most powerful model. It's about who can provide the most value to the most people.
Right, making AI accessible to everyone. But what about, people who aren't programmers or tech wizards? Can someone like me or our listeners who maybe don't have a ton of technical knowledge, can we actually use these tools?
Oh, absolutely. And that's a really important point. Even with open source models, not everyone wants to build everything from scratch. That's where these pre-trained models come in. It's kind of like, imagine you want to build a house, right?
I imagine.
You could start by chopping down trees and milling your own lumber, but most people, they just go buy pre-made lumber.
Right. Way easier.
Exactly. So these pre-trained models, they're like those pre-made building blocks. Someone else has already done the hard work of training them on tons of data, and now they're ready for people to use as a starting point.
So it's like AI for the rest of us.
Exactly, and that's a huge part of what's making AI more accessible. These pre-trained models let people with different skill levels use AI without having to be, coding experts or whatever.
It's really cool. It opens up so many possibilities for businesses, researchers, artists, anyone, really.
For sure. And it ties into the whole trend of AI becoming more and more a part of everyday life. I mean, think about things like smart assistants or personalized recommendations online. This price war, it's probably just going to speed that up.
Yeah, AI is everywhere. But doesn't that raise some concerns? Like, what about jobs? And, AI being misused?
Oh, absolutely. Those are really valid concerns. And it's so important to have these conversations about, the impact of AI on society. We need to be careful about how we use it, to make sure it's used ethically.
Right. It's not all fun and games. It's a really powerful tool, and we need to be responsible with it. So while we're, excited about all these advancements and how much cheaper it's getting, we also need to be aware of the potential downsides.
Exactly. We need to strike a balance. And that's where, collaboration and open communication are key. We need experts from all sorts of different areas, like tech, ethics, policy, even sociology, to work together to figure out how to do AI the right way.
It sounds like this price war is about more than just, how much AI costs. It's making us think about, the bigger picture, how AI is going to change the world.
You got it. This is just one part of a much bigger shift that's happening, and it has the potential to really reshape our world, in ways we can't even imagine yet. And with any powerful technology, we need to be both excited about it and cautious.
So with all this going on, these competing companies, this new technology, what does this mean for the future of AI? Where do we go from here?
Well, if I had to guess, I'd say we're heading towards a world where instead of having just one dominant AI model, we'll have all sorts of specialized AI models, each one designed for specific tasks.
So it won't be like one AI to rule them all. It'll be more like a team of AI specialists.
Exactly. Think of it like an orchestra, right? You've got all these different instruments, each with its own unique sound, but together they make this amazing music.
Oh, I like that analogy. So we might have an AI that's great at language, another one that's amazing at recognizing images, and another that crunches numbers.
Yeah.
And they can all work together, right?
Yep. And as AI gets cheaper, it's going to be easier to use all these different specialized models, and that's going to lead to a whole ecosystem of AI working together.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing. It's like we're building a collective intelligence.
That's a great way to put it. And it shows how the future of AI isn't just about the tech, it's about how we use it and how it changes the way we interact with the world around us.
Speaking of interacting, one thing that I've noticed throughout this whole discussion is how Microsoft seems to be playing both sides. They're making money from OpenAI's GPT-4, which runs on their cloud platform, but they're also supporting DeepSeek.
Right. Microsoft's in a pretty interesting position. They're going to benefit from this price war no matter who wins.
Yeah, it shows how complex this whole AI thing is. It's not just about the tech. It's about the business, the partnerships, all the decisions these companies are making.
Exactly. To really get what's going on, you've got to understand the bigger picture, like why these companies are doing what they're doing and how it's all going to affect different industries and, society in general.
This has been really eye-opening. I feel like I'm starting to grasp how complicated and nuanced this AI world is. It's not just cool gadgets. It's about, like, economics and strategy and how we live and work.
And we're just getting started. The AI revolution is just beginning, and the choices we make now are going to be really important for the future.
So how do we navigate all this as individuals, as a society? How do we make sense of it all and figure out what to do?
That's the key question, and that's what we're going to dig into in the last part of this deep dive.
All right, so we've been talking about this AI price war and how it's shaking things up. We've got these super powerful models like DeepSeeks and OpenAIs. And
Right.
companies like Microsoft are, well, they're kind of in a win-win situation no matter what happens. But what does it all mean for, regular people, for our listeners?
hmm
How's this going to affect our lives?
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in all the tech talk and the hype. But the real power of this is that it's making AI available to more people. It's like, remember when computers were this new thing, or
Yeah.
the internet? It was all really expensive and only for like big companies and universities, but then it became more affordable and that changed everything.
Right. So you're saying this price war could have that kind of impact, make AI something everyone can use.
Exactly. But of course, there are always, concerns like what if cheaper AI means worse quality?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If companies are cutting prices, are they going to cut corners too? Could that lead to, like, AI that's unreliable or even dangerous?
That's a legitimate concern. We definitely need to be careful about that. But I actually think that DeepSeek's approach, the whole open source thing, might actually help with that.
Really? How so?
Well, with open source, anyone can look at the code, right? So it's kind of like having a bunch of experts checking it out, looking for problems. That kind of transparency, it encourages developers to really focus on quality and security.
Oh, I see. It's like a built-in safety net. But, even with the best intentions, can't someone still find a way to, like, exploit AI? Doesn't matter if it's open source or not.
You're absolutely right. No technology is perfect. And AI is powerful, so there's always that risk. That's why we need to be talking about these things, about ethics and safety and how AI is going to affect society as a whole.
It's like, yeah, the tech is cool, but we need to think about the human side of it too.
Exactly. And that leads to a really important takeaway for our listeners. Don't just sit back and watch this happen. Learn about AI, try things out, and think critically about how it's all going to play out.
So, like, what can people actually do? What would that look like?
We'll start by, just exploring. There are tons of AI tools out there, and many of them have free trials or like educational resources. Don't be afraid to experiment, get your hands dirty. Even if you're not a programmer, there are ways to use AI without having to code.
So get out there and play around with it. But what about beyond that? How can we, like, help make sure AI is used for good?
Well, that's where thinking critically and talking about it with others comes in. Stay informed, read articles, listen to podcasts, and talk to people about it. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and don't be afraid to challenge assumptions.
Become part of the conversation, not just a bystander.
Right. Because the future of AI, it's not set in stone. It depends on what we do, the choices we make, the things we value.
And that brings us back to that question you asked before, the one about, like, if AI gets this cheap, what could we do that we can't do now?
I know, it's pretty exciting to think about. Imagine the possibilities in medicine, education, science, art, just in everyday life. What if every student had a learning plan that was made just for them? What if we had virtual assistants that could, like, anticipate our needs and help us manage our lives?
That would be amazing. But, it also makes me think about, like, what if we become too reliant on AI? What if we stop thinking for ourselves? And what if AI just makes existing problems worse? Like inequality and bias.
Those are really important questions. And they're exactly the kind of things we need to be thinking about as AI becomes more powerful and more common. It's not enough to just be impressed by the technology. We have to consider the ethical side, the social impact, even the philosophical questions it raises.
This deep dive has really made me think. It's a bit overwhelming, honestly, but also really exciting.
I agree. It's a lot to take in. But remember, we're still early in this whole AI thing. We have the chance to shape how it develops, and it's up to all of us to make sure it's used for good.
So to everyone listening, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the world of AI. Who knows what the future holds? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.